What's up? Welcome everybody to Tales Tomorrow. I am Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me have some more RPG horror stories. It's been a while, guys. I've been gone. I've been busy. I've been so exorbitantly busy. You have no idea. It's just non-stop busy after busy to the point where majority of the last month I didn't get to do much videos. It's been a hot minute since I recorded, but I finally have a little bit of time at like what, 6 in the morning. Dude, I've been so that busy. I've been so busy and my sleep has been so terrible. I've not been able to even do anything Tales Tomorrow related, and I miss you guys. I miss you guys. I miss the soup. Let's go ahead and get some RPG horror stories for today. Roommate thinks I am a problem player and harasses me about it IRL. Years ago, I moved into a house with a DM, old and new. DM ran a game that myself and old were in. It was great, and we were excited to move in together and be the D&D house. I met new shortly before they moved in, but the new DM and old from college and seemed nice. We start playing a new game run by DM with us 3 housemates plus 4 other friends as players. However, after like 4 months or so weekly sessions, old and new are suddenly treating me like I'm a terrible problem player. DM could be harsh when it came to consequences and failures, and the party became extremely shy and risk averse because of it. Hours of sessions were wasted, catastrophizing decisions and getting paranoid about what would happen if things went wrong. I'd attempt to mediate and summarize everyone's concerns and point out paths to accomplish our goals, but old and new would interrupt and claim us being bossy or say things like, "I don't appreciate how you're speaking to us right now." As DM, he thought I was a problem, and he said no, but he couldn't control how old and new felt. He tried talking to them, but nothing came of it. Well, as much as I think it would be cool to move in with somebody because to be like the D&D house and stuff, be able to do D&D stuff together, I feel like you should only do that not with people that you have fun playing D&D with, but with people that you think are going to be good roommates. Because I mean, yeah, sure, it sounds cool to have like your D&D house, be able to do D&D stuff. Maybe you guys decide to, I don't know, let's say hypothetically decide to start streaming your D&D stuff. I'm pretty sure that's how Legends of Adventures started. They basically became a D&D house and started basically like streaming their games together. I'm not fully sure. I don't know their full lore. I like their shorts, and that's about all I know about the lore. Bitsy and stuff and the clown and all that. It's cool lore, but I don't know them as people, nor do I'm not gonna really research it that deeply, to be honest. But if you're looking for somebody that you could be in a D&D house with, it better be people that you can tolerate, not just at the D&D table, but also outside of D&D table. Potentially, perhaps, perchance, maybe there was some sort of an issue between where your personalities clash, or maybe the different lifestyles were just a little bit too rigid. There wasn't a lot of eye to eye being seen, boundaries being established ahead of time, and maybe guys started grading on each other. I don't know. A little bit of backstory about me. I was with Boy Scouts. There's a local Boy Scout troop here that I think my mother signed me up forever for, just to try to get me to socialize more. Spoilers, I didn't get to socialize too much, and the people in there absolutely hated. And yes, the Scoutmaster did turn out to be the weird, creepy guy that everybody assumes they are, which they didn't do anything to us, but apparently basically they did stuff with their own family members, which gross, ew. But I end up doing a lot of like outings with my Boy Scout troop, right? Sometimes I go to like a stay at an air base, which was kind of fancy, not gonna lie, it was kind of cool. Sometimes I go to a specific campsite, and let me tell you something, doing that and staying around with other obnoxious individuals around tests your patience really badly. Having to stay with somebody over the weekend is one thing. Having to stay with somebody and live with them, that's a whole other thing. So when you're signing up with somebody to stay with somebody for a D&D house and to do D&D stuff with, make sure it's going to be people that are going to be good roommates, are going to be somebody that's pleasant to live with, not just somebody that you want to play D&D with. Either way, I'm digressing. Let's find out what exactly happened in the story. Then old and new started coming after me while I was just trying to live in my own home. They'd show up in my room wanting to talk, or catch me in the kitchen, or interrupt DM. And when we were talking about the game, they claimed I always shut down their ideas, forced everyone to agree with my plans, ignored anyone else's input, and dismissed players' concerns about difficulty and consequences. It was always 2 versus 1, and I couldn't ever defend myself to them. They went on a couple of months, and it got so bad and frequent enough that I was considering moving out to get away from them. Yes, if they tried to ambush you for no reason, just out of game, like anything that happens out of game should be solved out of game at the end of the day. If it's something that needs to be brought up in game, it could definitely be discussed, like, you know, personally. I like, you know, in a more, I guess, less aggressive, less hostile manner. You know, ambushing somebody in the kitchen, probably not a great idea to talk about what you've done in D&D session. However, I guess I got a question for you is, did you do any of those things? I mean, realistically, like, did you do any of these things? Because sometimes we can end up inadvertently come off a little bit bossy. I've had that happen so many times. I'm role-playing Morrow in a specific way, and I'm barking orders as Morrow, but I'm role-playing, and somebody may take what that I'm barking orders and stuff as Morrow and just role-playing as me being too bossy and too controlling, and I have to explain to them that no, it's just role-play. At the end of the day, I really don't care like what specifically happens. If your character chooses to ignore Morrow and say like, that's dumb, let's go with this idea, I'll just take it at face value. I suppose, I guess the question is, if you are indeed guilty of these sort of things, I'm sure these kind of things can be discussed, but I fully agree that having be ambushed in the middle of a conversation or in the kitchen, or having somebody just walk up to your room to want to have a talk about what your character done in the last session can be probably kind of annoying, especially when you're just trying to live. There should be, I think, in everything, should be some sort of like a work and game and life balance, right? When you're out of work, you're doing work stuff, but when you're out of work, you don't want to think about work stuff, because thinking about work stuff is going to make you all cranky and everything, so you need to live a little. But also the same thing can be happening also at D&D. There's a lot of things to keep up with, and it depends on the kind of game you're playing, and it seems like you guys are playing kind of a more high-strung, stressful game where intrigue and mystery and choices matter. Perhaps it might be good to separate D&D time and non-D&D time and kind of unplug yourself for it. But because of your roommates, your great party members, you can't unplug from it. You can't even discuss, you can't even like talk about the weather or talk about what happened in sports bowl somewhere or whatever the heck, or what happened you saw on Twitter. I don't know, you saw a brand new Tales Tomorrow video come out finally because he's finally back, and you can't even discuss about it because your roommates just want to complain to you about what your character did and want to have the talk. I hate when people use the talk. I really hate that. It kind of puts me on edge. Every single time somebody wants to have a talk with me, it already puts me guarded on an edge and irate. It's like, dude, if there's something going on, just say it out loud. Don't ask me to pencil in the talk and stuff. Just tell me what's going on so we can get out of the way so I can move on to relaxing again. But let's continue. I then apparently became such a bad player that old and new demanded an intervention to talk about my problematic behavior at the table with the whole party. They presented their case to the group and smugly sat back to wait for them to all agree with them. I very distinctly remember the smugness, except the rest of the party immediately jumped to my defense and told old and new they were being ridiculous. Every single one of them appreciated my contributions to the table, and none of them thought I was out of line or bossy or problem in any way. Old and new were shocked that no one agreed with them and felt like crying from the relief that the rest of the party had my back. During what little of the game continued to happen after that, old and new left me alone and didn't complain about me. I more or less got over it, and we continued to be roommates for a few more years, and we even successfully played in other campaigns together where all of us got along just fine. To this day, I could never figure out what the problem was that they suddenly took issue with me like 4 months into the game, but it was a small enough issue that they dropped it entirely once they were outnumbered. I'm betting you they probably were like taking the tiny little nitpicks and they just griping about it, and it basically became like a gripe circle jerk between them until eventually they were like, we should totally bring this up and everything to this player. This player is totally a... Basically what I'm trying to say is they created their own echo chamber. One had a gripe with you and the other was like, I had a gripe with him too, and they started basically bad mouthing you in an echo chamber. As the comments bounce around, the resentment grows until eventually those two numbskulls basically were like, well, this player is just so bad, we should probably oust them as a bad player as they are. We have all these arguments and stuff, and we have all these biases and this echo chamber to basically boost our anger to them. We should take that anger to the rest of the table and we'll show them exactly what kind of a mean bad player they are to the rest of the table. When it turns out it was never really an issue, it just a couple of pet peeves that basically grew into a large resentment. Echo chambers are bad. Echo chambers aren't great. When two numbskulls that have an agenda against it end up echo chambering back and forth over and over just to gripe and grow resentment and grow the gripes together, it ends up becoming more like an elephant out of a molehill. I don't know, it's like a weird thing to say. I don't know, man. It's a weird like a Russian saying that I remember my grandma specifically saying. I don't know why. Russian babushkas are just absolutely wild when it comes to those sayings. The proverbs and all the sayings and stuff are nuts. But either way, these guys' echo chamber basically got him to think think about the smaller infractions and less about the bigger picture, yeah, maybe there might have been a moment where your character was bossy, but also it could have been you were just role-playing, or it was just in a moment it felt right, or maybe it was like a weird interaction that was like a one-off and everything, but these guys just have to latch onto this thing and basically kind of just create an echo chamber of mean and meaner, basically try to be the mean girls in the situation. They try to, I don't know, build up some sort of a credible quote-unquote argument against you, but as the rest of the party listened out to the gripes and arguments, they realized, hey, no, that is not true. And you know what, I feel like this situation could have been avoided if old and new were to go to the rest of the party and ask them what they think as well. But I'm glad it was out at the table together. At least now the air was cleared and things could move on and you guys continue to play the different games. I don't know, man, sometimes people just get specific gripe and they get on a specific bias, and this negative bias sort of kind of explodes out because of echo chambers. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody has a problem against somebody else and they start trying to basically like they want to have a discussion about you or talk to you about the specific individual, but it basically turns into like mudslinging and shit talking? That's basically what these guys end up doing. They started their own shit talking about you, and it basically just grew in a not a productive conversation to the point where they just became a bouncy echo chamber where they just bounced off negativity against you and decided, well, yeah, we got totally enough material to try to oust this player because they're totally bad, when in a big picture you didn't even do anything wrong because the rest of the party doesn't know what you did wrong and the DM doesn't know what you did wrong. Nobody except the two numbskulls know what you did wrong. Anyway, guys, lesson is echo chambers are bad, and always it's good to get a second opinion. Let's get the next RPG horror story for today. Toxic group ghosted me and dropped Google Doc, also used an appropriate adult feeler and weaponized it as a personal attack. I was running and playing in a few weekly games with a group of people who all share tight bonds from playing Final Fantasy XIV together. Hell yeah, good game. Looking back, they operated less like a normal gaming group and more like an insular clique that did a lot of talking behind people's back. Oh boy. First real warning sign happened when I was bedbound in a rehab hospital with broken legs. I was using humor to cope with several trauma and pain, and still bent over backwards to join the sessions every week from my hospital bed. Instead of showing basic human empathy, they used the back channel to orchestrate a tag team intervention to blindside me because they thought I was joking too much and ruining their immersion. The real breaking point happened in our Friday campaign. For months, a massive amount of actual session time was hijacked by the DM and one specific player doing endless one-on-one or romance or role play. The sole purpose of these hour-long scenes was to build and maintain a literal 10-person in-character polyamorous harem for that player's character. No. Hold on a second. Stop. This is not a D&D game or whatever you guys are playing. This is not a TTRPG game where you get together. You just literally all captured audience for someone playing a visual novel in a harem style. You probably seen them. I don't know how many people have ever played visual novel, but it's basically just like it's not even a walking simulator. It's a talking simulator with a very minimal choices. I mean, some of them could be a little more complex, but either way, if you're just there to be an audience member and watch and observe somebody play through Harem the simulator game, then I don't think you're a player. I think you're a captive audience. And having to lock everybody in for one-on-one romance roleplay with 10 different NPCs because somebody wants to do like a 10-person poly harem thing, and everybody has to just sit there and watch. You probably could have penciled it in on an off session where nobody else would need to be present. It's cool that your character is into romances, and oh my god, you're so flirtatious because you're totally a bard and a tiefling and whatever you are, or half-elf. I don't know what the stereotype is nowadays, but listen, I couldn't care less about your 6-hour polyamorous love story. I would have rolled some dice and killed some dragons, or maybe hunt dragons or slay dragons. Maybe I'm playing bard, maybe I'm a tiefling bard, know what to slay that dragon in the bedroom. Maybe I would have get some romance too. It's a little bit unfair that DM basically forced everybody to be a captive audience just to have some sort of like a poly romance be explored. You guys could have done it in your notes in private, or have some sort of private solo session that is non-canon, to be completely honest. Eventually, DM engineered a scenario where the party acquired a god tier artifact. To create stakes, DM had the villains capture the player's entire 10-person NPC poly group and hold them hostage. Expect the party to eagerly trade away a legendary game-changing artifact to save them. My character gave a standard, pragmatic response. We're not trading a god tier artifact for hostages. DM and the players took this completely personally. The situation turned into a heavy party conflict. My character ended up running away. Tension got heated in the call, and the player actually left the session mid-call. I didn't personally attack her at all. I didn't even validate her in-character feelings, but it still took it as a real-world insult. Right after the session, I tried to personally reach out to her to smooth things over and reconcile, but I was completely ghosted. Okay, all right, hold on a second. Oh, how dare you. Don't you know them and their 10 lovers definitely need that item more? I don't want to put like I understand this is like a game and everything, and I don't want to put like a balancing thing or like a value to romance NPCs compared to an artifact item in a TTRPG game or anything, but I gotta be honest, I'll probably do the same. And in fact, you know what? Here's what I recommend. Maybe don't have 10 NPCs tied to your character that are so important the DM is going to be lording over them just to hold as a hostage. Because that a DM basically using manipulation in a sense to basically manipulate your character. I get it, it could be for story reasons and everything, but like to raise the stakes in such a capacity in such a way is crazy. First of all, I don't know what BBG would ever research your whole polyamorous thing just to capture every single member of your poly. Second of all, I'm pretty sure that for your poly there's going to be some sort of a tier system for it, where some you probably like more than others, but I digress. Maybe it's a mean thing to say, I don't know, man. On one hand, for example, I could see that maybe this could become a story, you know, that would be worth exploring. Oh, one of the party members, a lover, is now captured. Well, I guess in this situation, an army of lovers is captured by the BBG because they did all the research to find out all the stuff and every single lover and track them all down, apparently, because apparently BBG is just that kind of a wonder sleuth, a romance wonder sleuth, and just able to capture every single member of the harem. I wonder if maybe the story would have been different. Like, realistically, what if, let's say, for example, the BBG only had half the people from the harem? Would the story be different? Will the stakes be offset? I mean, yeah, it is a person that your character is romantically involved with, but I mean, you know, if it's going to be like an army of them, it's going to be a harem and stuff. I mean, does it have more value less value that is like less people, or is it still equal as valuable? I don't know, man. Poly interactions, I gotta be honest, I don't get. I generally don't think they most work, and in fact, the ones that I have seen try to make it work fell apart disastrously because jealousy is a thing and people get jealous, and it's just human nature to become jealous. I want to be like exclusive for the one and only. I think I don't know, I never seen one that works. I'm sure there's some that work, but all the ones that I personally witnessed and seen turn into a train wreck, and it is no thank you. I'm a stick with just being one-on-one with my only one. Let's continue. While I was in the middle of playing an entirely different game with another table, I received a massive Discord message from one of the Friday players acting as a spokesperson for the group that already kicked me from the Roll20 server without a word. Message was a laundry list of personal attacks, calling me self-harming, selfish player who treated the family game like a playground. The peak of the hypocrisy was how they weaponized my personal life. Months earlier, I put out a completely normal, mature adult feeler for romance towards one of the players. When I was rejected, I completely accepted it, dropped it, and moved on. The clique resurrected this, twisted it, and threw spiteful labels at it, accusing me of trying to squeeze into a relationship. The fact that a group spending hours on literal 10-person in-game poly romance called a respectful real-world interaction gross was ridiculous. To top it off, they informed me that spend the week talking behind my back to complete a literal Google Doc dossier of collective grievances, completed with linked statements from each player outlining why I was banned. Before I could even reply, they blocked me and everything. I left my Monday and Wednesday servers. Okay, hold on a second. I gotta reread that specifically. They spent the week talking behind your back and they literally actively admitted it? Dude, I just finished talking about a story about an echo chamber. This is even worse of an echo chamber because they got the entire brigade, the entire armada to brigade against you. Now, on one hand, could there be a possibility that maybe you did something wrong? That putting out feelers was a little bit, you know, maybe a little bit too weird. You're trying to get into what already is pre-existing and stuff. That could be always a possibility, you know. There's a bias when it comes to the right to writing themselves in a more positive light than they mean to be. Sometimes it's a purpose, sometimes accidental. But if, let's say, for example, all you did was just, hey, I'm kind of interested in you. I was hoping we could maybe get coffee sometime, or maybe we could play, I don't know, we could play Genshin Impact together. I don't know what people play nowadays to get romantic. Maybe you want to do that, and said, no, sorry, I'm not interested, and that's it. If just putting out like a interest in somebody romantically, or at least, you know, in a dating kind of of sense. Is if that's a bad thing, then I mean, I don't know. I think the world's kind of doomed if that's apparently a bad thing. But that's what happens when it comes to these echo chambers. They tend to talk about you and they end up twisting it in a really malicious, spiteful way. That's why the echo chambers are bad. And in this way, you're being painted as probably a worse guy than you really are. I mean, listen, there could be a possibility that you are indeed the evil incarnate that they describe you to be, and we literally have no idea. You could be completely hoodwinking us and absolutely joshing us, and we would have no idea. We'd be completely blindsided by this story entirely. But there also could be a possibility that they actually did put together like a whole dossier on you and set up like a whole Google Doc. They dropped a Google Doc on you to describe how bad of a guy you are, when in reality you didn't even do anything bad, but they're painting you in a really bad light because they're misusing context about you and basically just saying you're this really terrible individual. If you're really that bad, you know what they could have easily done? If you're really that bad, just removed you, blocked you, and said, sorry, you're not welcome to the table, and just left it at that. But no, we gotta start up a whole campaign against you for some reason. I don't know why. Let's continue. One player from that Friday group, who also plays on Wednesdays, chose to stay neutral. He admitted to warn him about me, but he just wanted a fun game. I set a hard boundary with him. He can stay, but the Friday group and those players are banned topic at my table. For the rest of the Wednesday players, I posted a message letting them know clicks were nuclear and left. To protect my own mental well-being, we're doing a completely fresh session 0. Many players have kept their character concepts, but we're retconning and scrubbing every single piece of lore the old players dropped into the world so you can move on with a clean slate. For additional context, I was a player and DM for multiple successful campaigns with some or all of this click, and we DM'd a 5 to 50 people max level campaign for a fabulous ultimate game. Had an epic ending. Every single week I would check with the group stars and wishes at the end of the session. I was open to critics. Everyone enjoyed everything and was having a good time. When the drama happened, they ghosted and the click dropped a hostile Google Doc and blocked me without allowing me to defend myself using any ammo they could find, while I was willing to reconcile. Now, with these kind of stories, you never really know what the truth is. Like, on one hand, maybe you just paint yourself in a good light and you were indeed the evil incarnate, horrible creep that, you know, they describe you to be, and you actually should probably not do anything, any of that stuff specifically, and you just paint yourself in a more of a positive light, and you paint yourself as the good guy when they're the ones that being evil, and you say, I didn't do anything wrong, trust me guys. Or this could be a story of a player that genuinely want to have a fun group, but echo chambers and clicks end up ruining that for you, and instead of them trying to talk things out to you reasonably, they instead decided to paint you in a really bad light because everything started over you choosing to not give up an artifact over somebody else's poly romance after watching somebody for hours go through their harem stuff while you have to be a captive audience in the situation. And holy hell, I gotta be honest, that in itself is already frustrating enough for me that you had to sit through that. You honestly should have spoke up to DM and said, hey DM, maybe those kind of sessions you guys can just roleplay on your own solo as a non-canon session, so we don't have to spend hours of D&D or whatever you guys will play listening to this specific story play out without us being a captive audience for it. There's nothing wrong with romance and it's perfectly fine, but if you just sit for hours and hours with somebody to go through the poly interactions and have the one-on-ones with the 10s, you can't even do one-on-ones with 10s. Like, we're supposed to do just watch somebody go through, like, it's like watching somebody play like a dating sim and stuff. Like, listen, if I'm playing a dating sim, I just want to play it by myself. I don't want anybody watching me and judging me about my choices of what I'm doing and stuff. I don't know, some people like to have that spotlight, some people like to have that attention, and if you do, cool, bully for you, I'm happy for you. But having to make everybody else sit there and watch you go through Harem Simulator for hours on end for the entire session, no thank you, sign me out of that one. Personally, I feel like, but what's going on here with the story, and this could be, I could be wrong entirely, sure, but I personally feel like what's going on in the story is echo chamber turned toxic, and instead of talking things out with you or trying not to take like in-character sessions out of character or in-character actions out of character, they decided not to keep anything in the character, take it out of character. Instead of saying, oh, your character is kind of a dick, say that you're a dick, and decide to drop this Google Doc on you because spitefulness is spitefulness, and the loop and echo chambers basically blow things out of proportion, and at the end of the day, they decide basically be jerks towards you. I don't know. What are your thoughts in the comments below? Viewers, what do you think happened in this story specifically? I'm gonna go ahead and end this here for now. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.